I'm just waiting a second until the video starts.
Yes, I think it started. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's streaming on YouTube.
Yeah, no,
And
I have to wait until it starts on my screen so that it doesn't interrupt me talking.
Oh, okay, yeah, it starts
Because I haven't figured out how yet to have it not turn the audio on automatically. So what I should do is just have somebody else welcome us, and then I could go ahead and start or mute myself. Anyways, we are live, and we're having an awkward start to our meeting, but here we are at the weekly outreach meeting. Let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm Tim Erickson, St. Paul Tim. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota, and I am, I got back into the issue queue a little bit this week, but I'm still just a bit overwhelmed. We launched a backdrop site a couple weeks ago, and I got another one coming up here in the next week or two that we'll be launching. So I've been really busy and not getting my backdrop community stuff done. So we'll talk more about that later. Greg, you want to go next?
Yep. Hi, my name is Greg. I'm usually in Australia, but now in Greece. As per usual, I'm joining just to see what I can help with and catch up with the community. I'll pass on to Sarvasri.
Okay, my name is Srinanda Sarvasri, and I live in Walnut Cove, North Carolina. I'm new to Backdrop. I'm just learning about what's possible in developing CMSs to create nice websites. And in order to do that, I'm writing a little booklet, or I don't know what it'll turn into, but it's the ultimate beginner's guide to Backdrop. Because anytime I learn something new, I'm adding to it for other people who will want to learn Backdrop in the future, who are newbies like myself. Let's see, Robert.
I'm Robert Lang, a bug folder on the internet. I'm in Altadena, California, and mostly here just to see if something strikes a chord or resonates. My interests run through layout, city CRM, and HooverCart, and sometimes documentation. And
Okay, I think that's all of us. So we have, there's been some talk about making our particularly our weekly dev meeting more efficient. With this meeting, I have been starting it out by talking about if anybody has blog posts or social media. I guess again, let's just take a minute. If there's any news, things that we can socialize or publicize, now would be a good time to raise those issues. Although to be honest, I feel like I actually have a list of things to socialize, and right now our problem is less ideas and it's more time. Just to do this stuff. I personally haven't been keeping up with Twitter like I'd like to, or the blog. I've got about 6 blog posts that I'm supposed to be writing. So if anybody wants to write a blog post and needs ideas, let us know. Does anybody else have any thoughts?
One of the major things which we said it's okay to announce, we've already announced it basically. It's the 2 new core commuters. And maybe that's something that should go out. But
Sure.
we haven't got even a short announcement, just mentioning the names.
Yes. So I suppose, right, like I don't tweet about it because I want something to point to. Do we have
Yes.
them even on backdrop.org yet?
No, we don't. I don't think that we have. I haven't checked in a while. I'll check real quick.
Yeah, I'm going to backdropcms.org just to our leadership, right? We usually list core committers there, don't we? And
we do, but it's not. This is not even updated because we don't have an announcement for it yet. But maybe
so we haven't updated that page. We don't have a blog post. You're right, Gregory. We could do a really, I mean, it would be nice to do a lengthy blog post, but even if we did 1 or 2 paragraphs that just had their names in it, that would give us something to at least point to. Like then I could tweet and point at that for slightly more information, and it could be updated. later. Um,
Well, maybe over the weekend I'll just update the leadership page to include those two, and just I'm not good with words, but I'll put just the facts there, and if people want to spice it up with more words.
well, we'll see too. Again, sometimes I just have to dive in and make a half hour, but I have a dozen things to write blog posts about. So if anybody could do that, that would be great. Okay,
Can you quickly mention which things you have as bullet points? Are they on the list?
well, first of all, Backdrop Live.
Yes.
We're going to need to do something on our new release. I have some just general topic ideas, like Sarvashri's idea about recommended modules. I've been thinking about just writing a blog post with like my personal favorite 10 modules and why I use them. And I think those kinds of blog posts are really good for outreach because they appeal to users. Those are a few of the ideas off the top of my head. I'm looking for. I have the Miro board, which I didn't have open, and I think we have some more ideas there. Our code of conduct situation, we've been talking about doing a blog post there.
Yeah.
The work we're doing with CiviCRM right now, I think posting an update on that in a blog post would, might be helpful. The PMC update would be very helpful. Yeah, there's a number of things going on in the PMC that could be written about, if nothing else, just an update in what the PMC is doing. So these are all things that I could contribute to. Robert, do you like to write at all?
Yeah, actually, I've been adding to a narrative of the saga of converting the really big Drupal site.
Okay.
And thinking that someday that would, I guess when it's fully converted and up and running, would be a good time to publish all the little hoops and surprises.
Sure.
We have a a showcase section on the main site, which you can actually add maybe a short. Like it even has a section where you explain why Backdrop was chosen and how things worked out. Like, for example, I used Module X for task whatever, and it worked well because this and that. And there's quite a few use cases there already to just see examples from. But I understand that the bigger blog post would be useful as well, especially if you faced issues and then how you sorted them out. That's not if all the issues you faced.
Gregory, I mean, first of all, Robert, your project isn't done yet, right? You haven't went. It is?
Yeah, it's not done yet.
It's not done yet, right? And
a lot
Gregory, the showcase is really designed around showcasing the site, right? So
yeah.
it's focused
once
on
it's done.
Yeah.
I mean, but a lot of the overcoming problems were things like porting a module,
right.
writing a module.
So they're blog posts of their own, like smaller.
Becoming co-maintainer of this or that module.
Yes. Well, you could be. I mean, again, I don't want to put any more pressure on anybody because I know we all have a lot to do. But that certainly could be a series that as you go, you just post little snippets and then you could do something bigger when you're done. And if you have your own blog, you want to do that on, that would be great. We can link to it. But you would be welcome to post things like that on the Backdrop blog. So if that interested you.
Yeah, actually. I mean, because I've probably got 5 or 6 of the first installments, bite-sized pieces to.
Okay. Do you have access to Backdrop CMS to create content?
I can create content on the docs site. I haven't checked. Let's see. I'm on Backdrop CMS, and I don't see an admin menu, though I'm signed in, so I guess I don't.
Okay. Is your what's your handle? Is it Bugfolder?
It's Bugfolder.
Okay, cool. I'll see if I can give you access.
So I could envision sort of a series where you have a short intro paragraph, my ongoing journey to port my my site, and then here's the update, and you just, talk about any one of those little issues that you talked about. Anyways, again, we'd love to have that if that interested you, but
Yeah.
I want to be real careful not to put pressure on you if that's not something you have time for.
I wanted,
That's kind of why I started the saga, figuring it someday it would go out there. So yeah, this sounds fun.
Robert, I just made you an editor. I just gave you the editor role, so you should see options there to add content, even if just draft. And when you're ready, you can ask us to review it.
Yep, there we go.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, no pressure, just lowering the barrier. If you have time and you say, "Oh, that seems like a good portion of time that I can spend doing that," now there's less things for you to, blockers, I should say.
Well, and it's helpful. Anytime I see something like that, that's certainly an excuse to do a quick tweet. It's not that I couldn't come up with things to tweet about right now, but the easier the more obvious they are, the more likely I am to get them out.
So this actually raises an issue. I was going to suggest at some point for the docs site, but it's
Sure.
applicable here too, which is to add a markdown text formatting filter. It's just so much nicer to compose in markdown than in almost any other way for documentation like stuff.
Sure.
So that's my feature request. I'm not. Should that be an issue on backdrop.org?
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, to go about it. I know that Jen tries to keep things to a minimal, but if that allows more people to contribute to our blogs, yeah, I think that and I think there's already a markdown filter something module, right?
There is a markdown module. I've got it installed on the site that I've been converting, and so I use it a lot. It's really nice.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, maybe start with an issue in the backdrop CMS. Do you know which queue that is, or do you want me to give you a link?
And I know I've done backdrop issues before.
Okay.
Perfect.
Sure. And, and check, somebody might have an open issue for that. We need to have kind of a sprint on our infrastructure sites again sometime soon, because every once in a while someone gets motivated, but otherwise we don't seem to make a lot of changes to them.
Speaking about pressure and work that needs to get done, I'll just mention that real quickly. I think over the past entire year, I noticed that there was an increase in activity everywhere, like in all the issue queues, not just the core queue and Zulip. But what I've noticed the last month is that there's a lot that there's not many things going on, and then I was started to worry. And it's like knowing that most of our community is in the north of America. I asked Jen actually privately, and I said, am I worrying? Just is there anything seasonal that is going on? And it's just everyone's so busy with their actual, real life projects. So there's so many things to do, but yeah, actually everyone seems to be busy now, which is good.
It is. I would speculate that sort of the state, the changing world conditions in terms of the pandemic, people are sort of catching up on social things and getting out. So that's probably also a factor. I don't know for sure. But
that's the same thing that Jen said. Yeah. It was built up, expectation of, I can't wait to be able to go out again, things like that. And so people are doing, and the weather, of course, it's sunny. So
sure. I mean, I'm not sure that for me, the biggest factor though, is just been, I happen to have my work life is just really busy right now. And that's for sure the biggest factor. I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, and it's the same in Australia as well. It's the end of the financial year. So Peter and myself, at least, are busy with work.
Yeah. Well, and I get the feeling that in general, there's just a lot of work out there right now. So probably a lot of developers are busy. A lot of people in our community are really busy right now. So I also, personally, I had a couple of projects going at once, and I'm going to avoid doing that this summer, trying to limit my work a bit just because I can't keep up with this. Anyways, and well, why don't we segue that into Backdrop Live, which we've been trying to use our outreach meetings to plan for. And we actually got go, I felt like we started having discussions early enough. And now, we're just over a month out and we really haven't done very much. So, which is okay. Both of our previous backdrop lives were probably even in worse state at this, a month out. All of the planning happened within the last 4 weeks. But like for me, I think I'll, especially as I finish this next site, turn a lot of that attention to focusing on the next backdrop live, which is, I'm looking up the date, July 9th to the 10th. Well, we have done, so we've made a couple, we're a little bit ahead of the curve. We've made some decisions about scheduling. They're ready to go. I think the big thing right now is just we need to get registrations live. And we have, the problem with that has been, well, one is just time. Jen and I have done most of the work on the website in the past, and one of us needs to dig in and do that. But the other thing is that in order for us to accept, last time we cut corners, we're supposed to work with the Software Freedom Conservancy to get a payment process set up. And I don't know that any progress has happened on that. Last time we eventually gave up and just did our own thing. This time we are in contact with the Software Freedom Conservancy. We just got a new contact. We met with him about a week or two ago. And we need to follow up and see if we can get that payment processor set up, because then we could at least start working on getting registrations going. That would be a big thing. And that will give us a lot of things to start tweeting about and promoting once that's live. But the other, I don't know, does anybody have any updates or new things to talk about in terms of Backdrop Live?
I don't have much time
Okay.
to work on it, but if there's smaller tasks, maybe I can help.
Sure.
I'm mostly focusing, sorry, there's noise.
No problem.
Sorry, there's noise from outside. I'm mostly focusing on getting, allocating some time to get the features that I wanted for the next release. I know that's after the live, but that's sort of like where my focus is.
That's fair. I think in terms of Backdrop Live, so with nothing new to talk about, I'm going to just sort of reiterate what I think the priorities are. In addition to getting the registration going, for me, while there is a discussion that has come up in Zulip and other places about recording sessions, we've had requests to record everything at Backdrop Live, and our current position has been to not record everything for a couple of reasons. Primarily because we think it changes that we're having informal discussions, and we think that recording them sort of changes the expectations in ways that would change the nature of the event. It just makes people less likely to share spontaneously. I think also people are more reluctant to facilitate a session if it's recorded, because they feel like they need more prep. I think one of the things I keep trying to stress to people is that we're having informal discussions. You don't need to do a lot of prep. And then as soon as I tell them we're going to record it, I've sort of negated that, and they feel like, oh, now I need to prep. I need to have things ready. The other thing, frankly, for me as an organizer is just the extra overhead of having to worry about recordings and getting them posted. And that stresses me out right now to even think about. Like, we're having a hard time getting what we're trying to do done. So if people have feelings on that, contact us in Zulip or in the issue queue. But
I think that what Peter basically suggested about the recordings is a fair request, but same as you, like even today we had a Zoom call in the company that I work for, and someone, because we are spread out working remotely, someone suggested that they're missing out on our monthly team meeting, and they suggested that we record them, and it made me feel kind of awkward.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
I think that there's two groups. There's people that just don't mind, and the ones that are hesitant to sort of like participate.
Yeah.
I don't know how we can bridge that.
Well, I think that there are certain sessions that make more sense to record. And it's always been my position that I'm fine if we record some certain session. I think we did that at the first Backdrop Live. The last one, I think that sort of fell apart just because we didn't pick the sessions to record, right? We philosophically were fine recording some sessions, but we never made the decision about which one. We never made the communication, and so we ended up not. But that's part of my point, is that there is extra work and overhead involved in that. Is that, you know, so unless we, you know, I think Peter's suggestion has been we record everything. Well, that reduces the decisions to make, but it has the other downsides. So I'm interested in that conversation. Certainly willing to record some stuff. I think that as a whole, as a community, we record quite a bit of the content that we do create. For example, this meeting. But I don't expect that we can or should record everything. So that's one discussion that I know has been happening recently. The other things, doing better at getting people participating in time zones outside the US time zones is a big goal of mine. And I continue to stress, I'm just looking for more ideas and people who can help with that overseas. And I know, Gregory, come the time of the event, that you'll jump in and help out in every way you can. And that's useful, but it would be great if we could get some more people besides yourself.
Do we have a volunteer list where people who would like to get involved can volunteer and could mark what kinds of things they could do as a volunteer?
Well, that is a great
A volunteer coordinator would be another thing. Volunteer coordinator to set up a volunteer system or something.
I agree. Right. I think so. That applies to Backdrop Live, but just our community in general. And what I can say towards that is we don't have that. No. I think we might, I don't know. I'm not even sure. There might be something on when you register at backdrop.org that says, you want to volunteer or be involved. But if there is, I don't think we're using that data at all, or do we have a good way to manage it? We are working on implementing the tool to manage that data. So to better track how people are willing to help, and that is
you're referring to our own instance of CiviCRM. Is that?
Yes. We are working on getting CiviCRM implemented for the Backdrop community, where we will be able to have people sign up, say what kinds of things they're interested in. CiviCRM is a tool built to help with that, track that kind of data and do volunteer management. However, once we have the tool in place, that won't solve it until we also have the process and the time or a volunteer, somebody to manage that. So that's something else we have to think about as a community. But I think you're right, Sarvashri, we should have that. We don't really have a good place to do it. Right now, our volunteer management it's up to volunteers to sort of attend meetings and join in when they have time. And I think we could do better. So I think we know that. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Sarvashri, and I'll ask it.
I was looking at DrupalAsheville.com.
Yep.
The Drupal Asheville group has a meeting once a year as well.
Yep.
And they're using Eventbrite and other things. But when I went to one of those Drupal Asheville conferences, they had volunteers that were helping to manage the conference. That's when live things were happening, and there were volunteers. So I don't know if they have a volunteer coordinator or if they have something on their website that enables them to work with volunteers better.
Yeah,
it might be worth looking at their website, see if they have something figured out different.
Sure.
From what we're
well,
doing.
I have a pretty good idea how they do it. We've done the same thing at the Twin Cities Drupal camp that we planned. And usually we have a core group of volunteers that participates all year round, and we know who they are. And then we also have a mailing list from previous conferences. And so as the conference approaches, we send out an email saying, who can volunteer, and people step forward. And ideally on our planning team, we have a volunteer coordinator. So for Backdrop Live, I mean, it's similar. We do, when people register for Backdrop Live, we ask them if they're willing to volunteer for the actual event. And we try to follow up with some of them, but yeah, that's something we certainly could get better at. But we have there's a whole number of people who we know are willing to volunteer at the time of the event. And I think the main way we handle that right now is just through that informal knowledge of who has sort of volunteered in the past and who we can ask to help us. But we could formalize that some. And it's not that we don't know how to do that, Sarvashri. It's just we don't have the time or resources to do it.
Yeah. Just a question, Tim, with regards to the CVCRM, sort of like, I think it's an ongoing initiative. It's my understanding that the likes of Laren and Jack have knowledge.
Yep.
Is that basically the team that?
Yes and no. So basically what is happening in terms of the CVCRM initiative right now is Jack's company, Polente, Morgan has been doing some of the technical work of getting the Backdrop or CVCRM set up for Backdrop. We plan to implement it with our site. Jack, Jen and I had a meeting recently to talk about usage, how we're going to use it. Laren has definitely expressed a willingness to help, but hasn't been able to attend any of the meetings yet. But we also, both Herb and Laren and Robert, you all have extensive, we have quite a bit of CVCRM expertise in our core team. There's at least 2 or 3 other people. I know Luke McCormick is very interested and has some CVCRM, I think, usage experience at least. So we have a number of people, and we're trying to keep them all in the loop. We've had at least two meetings specifically about this.
That's basically what I was getting at. After we have the tool in place, I would like us to have a team and not just 1 or 2 people that are efficient, and it seems that is the case. So it basically answers the question of where I was getting at. Plus, I'm raising my hand to eventually be trained. I know that CVCRM is a beast of its own. So if
it is, because
we're mentioning virtual user groups as well, that's a nice thing. If someone can get me into that, I might be also interested in willing to help.
One of the next steps determined at our last meeting was to do kind of an internal training, something very informal, where Jack is actually going to show us an active instance of CVCRM and talk about how we can use it, what the different tools and plugins are. It's been requested that particular session not be a VUG, but we could also schedule a VUG, a virtual user group, on CVCRM as well. Although we do have a couple of good recorded sessions on CVCRM already on Backdrop. So if anyone's interested, there is some recorded content out there. We did I don't remember if it was a VUG or if it was a Backdrop live session that we recorded, but it should be available in our YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's a good topic for the virtual group, user group, and for live as well.
Yes, so it is. I think we've had at both of the Backdrop live sessions or conferences, we've had sessions on CVCRM. So
because it's complex, I just tried to install it at some point. I did install it, but then I was lost in all the options. Each time that I see the session, I sort of like, I don't know, my mind goes to the other session that happens at the same time. Maybe this time I'll just won't avoid it.
Well, I think that this is an appropriate topic for our outreach meeting, because CVCRM, once we get that installed, could be a really powerful tool to help us with outreach and publicity. But we also plan to use it to manage our email, a monthly email newsletter, which it's another thing we need to get out in the next week. And Peter was doing an excellent job getting that out for a few weeks. I tried to do it this month and just didn't have time, so we missed a month. But we really need to get that out this month. And I don't know if Peter's going to be able to do that. If anybody else has time and wants to help with the newsletter, let us know. So. I don't know if you could hear that, Gregory, but the newsletter is something we are in our current plans to manage completely with Civi CRM. So to manage our own list and to build the newsletter through Civi CRM. So,
That's awesome.
yep. So I think we're getting close on that. I don't know technically quite where we're at. We were hoping to have that ready to go this month. To
Are we setting it up on the actual backdrop service? So is Justin helping with that to set that up as a second database, or testing it?
So we plan to integrate it into backdropcms.org. There was discussions about having it be a separate instance or something, but right now I think that the plan is to integrate it in backdropcms.org. You can set it up as a separate database. I suspect that's what we're going to do, but I'm not sure. We're leaving that up to the Polenti team to sort of advise us on how best to configure it. Justin will get involved. We've communicated. I think he might have been at one of the meetings, or if not, we've tried to communicate with him to be prepared, for any infrastructure needs we have. But I don't think it's going to be complicated. I'm not sure that we'll really need him at all, really.
I see that Civi CRM is advertising full integration with WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, and Backdrop.
Yes.
Yeah. For some time now.
That's nice.
I have a Civi CRM. So I personally have my first client using Civi CRM, and that just went live a few weeks ago. They're using it very lightly, but I've been learning a little bit about it. So
That's nice.
yeah. Anyways, so we're almost out of time. I don't know if anybody has anything else to talk about. Yeah, why don't I just leave the floor open for the last 10 minutes? Anything else? So Sarvashri, do you want to update them on our what you and I have been working on?
Yeah. Basically, since I'm pretty much a beginner, I'm getting some help from Tim in starting to learn how powerful Backdrop is and how it is enabling the builders of websites, people who are not programmers per se, but site builders, to be able to do sophisticated things with databases within Backdrop. And that's what's called content, or what's the word for creating new content types. Content types, which is basically a database, and so that people will be able to do all kinds of sophisticated things in Backdrop that they cannot do in Joomla or WordPress out of the box. So, and learning about that and how views enables us to present that database in all kinds of ways that would be useful to the user. And then the next thing we're looking at is how to change the look and feel of Backdrop in terms of fonts and so forth, using something like CSS Injector. And he mentioned that basically the theming that is used in Drupal is very similar to Backdrop. And so I could learn some of the theming by looking at some of the Drupal training for those things. And I guess a lot of people who are already using Drupal have gone through a lot of that training. And so the usage of those same features in Backdrop is pretty much automatic. But for people who are not up to speed in those, they could use that kind of insight into the fact that by looking at Drupal training, they could be learning Backdrop as well and not have to work with the complexities of Drupal in other areas. So,
we do have some sessions recorded on building a sub-theme specifically for Backdrop, Sarvashri. I might not have mentioned that to you, but at the same time, I think what I did tell you is that a lot of the Drupal resources are excellent. So, and really apply in terms of creating the sub-theme. Backdrop isn't that different.
okay, so I could, whenever I need to know something, I could go and look and see if there's a Drupal if there's not a backdrop
Yeah.
instruction on that, then there's probably a Drupal instruction on it, and we could look at that.
Right, for a lot of things, yeah.
Good information to know for beginners who are not skilled in Drupal to learn backdrop.
So I've been trying to spend an hour a week, at least a little more than that, usually most weeks, with Sarvashri, just walking through really the intro to Backdrop and how to use all the tools. And we're recording the sessions, however, they're very much improvised. So I'm not sure they would be that useful in their raw form. I think they'd either need some extensive editing, or in my own view, I'm viewing this a little bit as a trial run, whereas I walk through this stuff if I'm able to find the time in the near future, I'd like to go back and sort of revisit what I've done with Sarvashri and record it in a more structured way as a good introductory sort of class in how to build.
As we're going through these things, I'm putting what I'm learning into my beginner's guide, ultimate beginner's guide to Backdrop.
Good.
And that guide could be turned into videos because it will have the sequence of things.
You should write a blog post too, Sarvashri, along the way, just about the process or about some of the questions that you have as a beginner, or what resources, there's a lot of different approaches I could think of for you to just write a short blog post.
Yeah, well, I'm writing that up for this ultimate guide anyway. So
okay.
I don't know if it'll be interesting to the community that already knows how to use Backdrop or not, but maybe.
Well, our blog is not just ideally we'd like to bring beginners into our blog as well. So let's go ahead and wrap this meeting up, and we can talk informally until the next meeting starts. So I'm going to go ahead and end the recording.